I have told this story 4 times since Athen. Each time, someone stops me to say that what she did was instinct, or training, or some physiological quirk they found a paper for. I let them finish. Then I tell them what I actually saw. My name is Vek Soran, 3rd-year auxiliary, Chirath-Vel Ground Corps, one of 8 soldiers assigned to the Joint Integration Trial on the Athen Shelf. The shelf sits at 63 degrees north on a moon the surveyors cataloged and immediately lost interest in. Breathable atmosphere, temperature not survivable, without rated gear. 2 prior teams went out there for survey work, and neither came back in a condition useful for identification. Command classified the zone at the 17th grade on the Environmental Lethality Index. Class 17, a number most soldiers treat as hypothetical, the kind of designation that exists so bureaucrats can feel they've covered the edge cases. Chirath-Vel do not consider themselves bureaucrats. They are warriors, and they run integration exercises with the seriousness of people who believe they invented war. The 8 of us had been selected from 4 species for joint trial. 2 Chirath-Vel auxiliaries, myself included, 2 Orani heavy infantry, 1 Palathi scout, 1 Veth medic, and 2 humans. One of the humans was pulled from the roster the night before due to a suit-fitting issue. That left Dara Holt. I want to be specific about how Dara Holt appeared when I first saw her, because it matters for what comes later. She was small, not fragile small, but compact and low to the ground, the way things that survive hard gravity tend to be built. Chirath-Vel cadre saw small. They saw a bipedal without chitinous armor, without the subdermal plating the Orani carry, even the Pelathi's thermal redundancy, a single stomach, 2 arms, no secondary joints. They saw her at the equipment station running her hands over a set of thermal line anchors the way a technician checks unfamiliar tools. Methodical, no expression on her face. The lead cadre officer, a warrior called Sech-Keral, at her. The way the Chirath-Vel look at things they have already categorized. He made a note in his log and did not speak to her directly for the first 2 hours. We moved onto the shelf at first light, which on that moon meant a flat white sky pressing down over flat white terrain, the horizon indistinct, the cold arriving not as a shock but as a slow announcement of intent. The suits handled the temperature at the margins. What the suits could not handle was the wind when it found gaps, or the physical demand of moving across shelf ice that had fractured and reset 1,000 times, so that what looked like solid ground was often a surface balanced over a void. Chirath-Vel trained us in 4-hour pushes with rest intervals. The training was designed to exhaust, carrying weight, finding across broken terrain, simulated casualty drags. The Orani infantry were impressive in their way, enormous and efficient, though they burned energy at a rate that required constant resupply. The Palathi scout was fast and precise on ice, and generally moved as though ground did not concern her much. The Veth medic kept pace without comment. Dara Holt kept pace without appearing to try. That was the thing I noticed in the first push. The Chirath-Vel cadre pushed tempo in the 3rd hour, the way they always do, to see who breaks form. The Orani infantry began to labor. The Palathi tightened up. I felt my own secondary joints complaining in the cold. Dara Holt's gait did not change. She was not surging. She was not faster than anyone. She simply did not slow down. Form at the end of the 3rd hour looked the same as her form in the first 20 minutes. Steady, even, like a mechanism set to a particular output and left there. Sech-Keral did not acknowledge this. The Chirath-Vel do not acknowledge things they did not predict. The storm came in during the 5th hour of the 2nd push. Weather, on the Athen Shelf, is not predictable in the way it should be, given the instruments and the models and the generations of data we have accumulated about that moon. The storm that came in during the 5th hour had been flagged at a 12% probability, which is the kind of number commanders use to mean it won't happen. It happened. It came from the northwest at a speed that turned the white sky into something without depth or edge, a static field where distance ceased to carry information. Sech-Keral made the call in 30 seconds. He was not wrong to make it. At Class 17 in an uncontrolled storm, you do not press a training exercise. You abort and you move for the emergency waypoint, which was a sealed station 4 kilometers south of our position, on the near side of a ridge we had crossed an hour and a half earlier. The squad turned south. Dara Holt was at the lead of the column. She had been rotating through point position and had taken it for this stretch, without comment, without being asked. In the storm, she was ahead of us. In the whiteout, as the wind erased the trail, she was further ahead. The Chirath-Vel cadre were running calculations on suit integrity and thermal reserve and moving the squad hard. And somewhere in the second kilometer, the column compressed around the cadre and the Orani, and the Palathi and I was third from the rear with the Veth medic behind me. I went through the shelf at the 2.5 kilometer mark. I felt it before I saw it. The ice below my front foot giving with a sound like a joint separating. And then I was down to my knee in a gap that had not been visible, and my suit flagged a breach on the left shin plate. Cold entered immediately, as pain but as the sudden and absolute certainty that I was now on a timeline. The Veth medic stopped. She assessed in seconds. She began a patch protocol. The rear Chirath-Vel auxiliary assessed us both, assessed the storm, assessed the distance to the waypoint. He was not wrong to do the calculation he did. I watched him catch the main column. I watched the column move. The Veth medic got the patch to 40% seal. Before the cold in my leg had moved from certainty to problem. Scent is not enough for class 17 in a storm, and she knew it. And I knew it. She kept working. She was doing what she could. Dara Holt before I saw her. Not her voice, she wasn't speaking. I heard her footsteps. On shelf ice in a whiteout. In wind loud enough to make communication suit-assisted only. I heard her footsteps, because they were deliberate, and they were coming from the north, which was the wrong direction. Which was the direction the storm was coming from. She came out of the white. She was not running. I want to be precise about this because people always assume she was running. She was walking. That same gait, that same output, utterly unchanged. She had turned around and come back 2.5 kilometers into the teeth of the storm. And she was walking. She did not ask me how bad it was. She looked at the Veth medic's patch, looked at my leg, looked at the direction of the waypoint. She said, "Get his arm over your shoulder." She said it to the Veth medic. Then she took my other side and we went. 4 kilometers of shelf ice in a class 17 storm, with a casualty who could not weight his left leg. I can tell you the duration. 91 minutes by my suit log, but duration is not the point. The point is what Dara Holt was like for 91 minutes. She was like the third hour of the first training push. Her output did not vary. The storm did not have a conversation with her about what was possible. She set a pace and held it. And when I slipped, she held me up. And when the wind put us both down on a patch of bare ice, she got up first and reached back and pulled. And when we finally crossed the ridge and the waypoint station came up on suit telemetry, she said, "There it is, the way you say something when you already expected to see it." Sech Karl was at the station with the rest of the squad when we came through the door. He looked at Dara Holt. He looked at me. He looked at the storm through the station's observation panel, where the white was now total. He did not speak for a long time. When he logged the exercise the next morning, he classified the incident under the Chirath-Vel standing vocabulary for events outside standard operational parameters. It is a formal category. It does not carry a specific word in their language, only a notation, because the Chirath-Vel built their military taxonomy to cover what warriors do, and what Dara Holt did that day they had not previously needed. For she came back. That is the whole of it. She was ahead. She had no obligation. The math said move for the waypoint. Every trained instinct, every one of us had said move for the waypoint. She came back, and she walked out of the storm with me, and she never once looked like it was anything other than the next thing to do. I have tried to explain this to Chirath-Vel officers for 4 years, finding frameworks for it. Physiological, sociological, statistical. The frameworks are not wrong exactly. They just don't account for the particular quality of that walk. The storm was not less cold for her. The ice was not less broken. She was not unaffected. She just kept moving.